having enough time to even run surgeries in Clacton, Nigel Farage, the MP for Clacton, graced LBC Studios and gifted them some of his valuable time this morning for a call-in with Nick Ferrari. At the end of this session, however, James O'Brien absolutely tore him apart.
Thank you, Nick. The time is approaching 10 o'clock and, well, there's a lot to get through today. For example, have you ever had violent race riots named after you, or indeed been accused by the head of the Met of emboldening the racist thugs responsible? Has your vile and ignorant rhetoric ever helped instigate attempts to burn people alive in their beds? Have you ever cited a self-described misogynist facing rape and people trafficking charges in Romania as a trustworthy news source for events in the UK? Or described yourself as part of a similar phenomenon to him? Have you ever helped a convicted woman beater get elected to the UK Parliament? And have any newly elected MPs spent more time in America getting binned off by Donald Trump than they have in their own constituency? And what would you call someone who answers yes to all those questions?
Why did Nigel Farage take out so much time to go to the LBC studios today? Well, I think it's because of the Conservative leadership election, which he obviously wishes he was actually participating in, because he feels he's the rightful leader of the Conservative Party.
Why do you say it would be fatal to merge with Reform UK? A lot of people think Nigel Farage should be in the Tory party.
Well, I don't share that view.
Why?
Because I don't think he's a Conservative. And he spent most of his time in the last few years telling people how much he dislikes the Conservative Party and would like to destroy it. I don't think that's a terribly good background for bringing someone into the party.
Nigel Farage is a populist, but he is not following the populist agenda by supporting Trump in Britain. Trump is really not popular in Britain. Most people are anti-Trump. So hearing him on Nick Ferrari this morning, banging on with absolute adoration for Trump, I think is going to be his undoing as time goes on, particularly if Trump is elected and causes more chaos in Europe. Polling from earlier this year shows that about 71% of the British public have unfavourable views of Trump, and merely 14% have favourable views of Trump. So Nigel's support of Trump and anything that he says and does looks like it's really got an uphill struggle. One caller this morning buttered up Nigel beautifully and flattered his ego, and then Nigel was prepared to let rip on his love of Trump.
Ability to say more eloquently what many of us think. Also, you've tried many times to get into Parliament. For many people who fail, they just need to take some inspiration from your good self. However, the question, much as you can hear the admiration in my voice, why do you support Trump so much?
Oh, because I think the world is a safer place with Trump. I think his instincts on the big stuff are right. I do not believe for a moment that Kabul would now be controlled by the Taliban again. I don't believe for a moment that the Ukraine war would even have happened. And I think that peace through strength is a very important thing. And so I think in terms of let alone, Steve, let alone...
was put together by President Trump, carried out by Joe Biden, but put together through Trump and authorised by Trump.
There were only 3,000 American soldiers left in Afghanistan. There hadn't been an American soldier killed for 18 months. They weren't going to withdraw, all right?
He was lying?
He wanted to de-escalate, but they weren't going to withdraw the way that Biden did. Oh, and by the way, Biden did it without even referencing us, his NATO colleagues. So I believe, and Steve, also the Abraham Accords... I mean, look at what's happening now in the Middle East. The Abraham Accords were an amazing achievement. So I think on all of those levels, he was a very, very good thing for the world.
I think Putin is waiting for Trump. If he is elected, then I'm very worried about the future of Ukraine. I do think if he can focus his attention long enough, which is difficult for Trump, that he will try to withdraw from NATO. And I think he would. I think presidents can withdraw from any treaties they want, and he could do it. And it would be a catastrophic mistake for the United States all around the world if he did, but it's possible. Putin may see more advances inside Ukraine with this disproportionate supply of ammunition and the small recent gains that Russian troops have achieved. that if he says at some point that he deems advisable, this war's gone on long enough, let's have a ceasefire in place, let's have negotiations in Geneva, then he has a new de facto Russian-Ukraine border along the ceasefire line, which would be a real defeat for Ukraine.
Steve back in. Steve, what would you say to Mr. Farage?
For hundreds of years, Afghanistan would never be occupied by anyone. The Russians tried it for a long, long time. Mr. Farage, explain the capital rights to me. Was Trump responsible?
I think it was very ill-judged to have that meeting there on the 6th of January. And even though he said and emphasised over and over again, not that you saw this on the news broadcasts, go in peace, some chose not to. So it was poor judgment to have people there on that
And a level
day.
of responsibility, as Steve asserts?
I think all of them, who were so keen to get that big demo, the very fact they held it led to what happened. Was it a deliberate planned coup? No.
All right. We heard recently from the president that he believes immigrants are eating people's cats and dogs in Ohio. Is he onto something?
Whenever he says something like this that sounds absolutely crackers, in the end, there always proves to be some truth in it.
You think Haitian immigrants are eating cats and dogs in Ohio?
I'll have a tenner with you that within the next month or so we find some evidence of it.
You're that convinced?
What the scale of it is, I've no idea.
But you do think some cats and dogs are being eaten
Nick,
in Springfield, Ohio?
I think Trump generally, when he says these things, is proved to be right.
The world has probably been fortunate that President Trump has yet to be taken out by two attempts. What would happen in the United States if it did? There's a level of toxicity. How would the country react?
Well, I don't want to think about it, really.
What did he say? I assume you've spoken to him since the golf club event in Florida.
I did ring him on Monday. I don't bombard him with phone calls. He's a busy guy. I just wanted to show some degree of friendship and support.
What was his mood?
Because, you see, the thing is, Nick, it's bad enough to be shot at a public event where the Secret Service clearly failed totally in their task. But his safe spaces are Mar-a-Lago and the golf club just down the road. Mm-hmm. That's where Trump spends time, with family, with friends. That's where he can relax, let his hair down and be him. That's his happy place. And the fact that it happened there, of all places, he's got to start thinking.
What was his mood, Mr. Farage?
He was, I would say he was putting a brave face on it. He said, I'm fine, it's no problem, don't worry about me, you've got your own problems on your side of the pond. Well, some truth in that, but not the same level, or we hope not, or the same degree. Putting a brave face on it, but just on a human level. Do you know, it's a funny thing. I was in that plane crash back in 2010, and a lot of people have said to me that I wasn't quite the same person for 6 or 9 months after that I had been before. And I did slightly feel in that debate that he did with Kamala Harris, it wasn't quite the same ebullient Trump. This stuff has to have an impact.
That's why he didn't do so well?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be.
And yet all around the world, lots of Conservative parties, like Trump's Republicans, like perhaps the Conservative Party in this country, have been attacking institutions. They've been attacking democracy. Why has that happened, do you think? Why have Conservatives been drawn to those anti-democratic tendencies?
I find it baffling that they've done that. I mean, the previous government were talking of the blob. The blob are people who work for the government and who are the mechanism to transfer the government's policies to reality. Doesn't seem to be very sensible to insult them. And a whole series of other people. Judges were enemies of the people, I seem to recall many people said. And half the nation who voted to sustain our position in Europe, a position the Tory party had had for 40 years, were insulted as Ramonas. I find it very difficult to understand why people actually took that particular view. And I think insulting people whose votes you need and whose votes you're going to ask for does not seem to me a very good form of canvassing. But that is what people did, and we saw the result at the general election.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to comment below. And also, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. You can also hit the notification button, which will alert you to when I post videos.